Eddie's Wonder Bar, opened in 1929 in Madison, Wisconsin. The restaurant was opened by Eddie Tohey. He was one of the terrible Tohey brothers, who started as bootleggers and who first supplied illegal alcohol to Al Capone's gang. When Capone wanted to take over their operation, a full war broke out, known as the famous Beer Wars of Chicago. It soon gained a reputation as a gangster hangout that served good food and illegal drinks. Many notorious crime figures spent time there. It is generally accepted that this was a safe house for John Dillinger as his crime spree spread through the Midwest. Al Capone, Babyface Nelson and other gangsters have all been reported to have been there. They also gambled, as well as engaging in other illegal activities. It was often under surveillance by the FBI, and had removable sections in the front of the building that could be used as turrets through which the mobsters could poke their guns. It also had a tunnel that ran toward Lake Monona that was used to smuggle booze and help the clientele escape quickly if raided. Eddie disappeared in the 1950s. It's rumored that he is buried behind the second-floor fireplace. It is also said horrible things have taken place in the basement, such as beatings and murder. Roger, the leader of the brothers, lived until 1959. He was convicted of kidnapping John Factor, a sibling of famous cosmetics mogul Max Factor. Roger was sentenced to 99 years in prison. Then in 1942 he escaped from the Stateville Correctional Center. He was arrested by the FBI several months later in Chicago after robbing an armored car of $14,000. He was sentenced to an additional 199 years in prison for the escape and robbery. He was finally released on parole in 1959, 25 years after he was first incarcerated. He was shot and killed 22 days after he got out of prison, on the doorstep of his sister's home in Chicago. Many reports have surfaced over the years of strange noises, doors slamming, objects that move by themselves, including heavy chairs, as well as other unexplained events. A ghost-like shadow of a man, wearing a 1930s-era fedora hat, and a trench coat has been seen standing at the top of the stairs, and wandering through the building. Some believe it is the spirit of Eddie Tuffy. A portrait of an attractive and scantily clad redhead hangs over the downstairs fireplace. It is believed to be a niece of the Tohey brothers. The painting is 60 years old, and the young woman, who looks to be in her 20s, is said to haunt the restaurant also. It has been said by the staff that her laugh can be heard throughout the building. One night, a waitress found that her till was short $14. Upset, the waitress had no choice but to close out the bar as usual. She walked upstairs at the end of the evening, to turn off the lighted sign above the entryway, only to find the missing money fanned out on a nearby table. Today, the Wonder Bar is a upscale steakhouse. Known for being one of the best restaurants in Madison, it has received many 4- and 5-star reviews. On the morning of February 14, 1929, in a brick garage located at 2122 North Clark Street in Chicago, 7 men were lined up against a brick wall and shot with 90 bullets from submachine guns, shotguns and a single revolver. It was the most infamous of all gangland slayings in American history. Its purpose was the elimination of the last gang who dared to challenge Al Capone for control of bootlegging in Chicago. By 1929, Capone's only real threat was George Bugs Moran, who headed his own gang and what was left of Dean O'Banion's much diminished North Side gang. At 10:30 a.m., 4 men burst into the SMC Cartage Company garage that Moran used for his illegal business. 2 of the men were dressed as police officers. The group announced it was a raid, and ordered the 7 men inside the garage to line up against a wall. Then they opened fire on the men. Witnesses, alerted by the noise of the machine guns, watched as the gunmen sped off in a black Cadillac car that looked like the kind of car police used, complete with a siren. The victims, killed outright or left dying in the garage, included Frank Gusenberg, Moran's enforcer, and his brother, Peter. 4 of the other victims were Moran gangsters, but the 7th dead man was Dr. Reinhard Schwimmer, an optician, who was friends with Moran, and just happened to be visiting that day. Missing that morning was Capone's main target, Moran, who overslept that morning. He missed getting killed by only a few minutes. The only witness left alive was a dog named Highball, who was tied to one of the axles of the trucks in the garage. Frank Gusenberg, who had 22 bullet wounds in his body, did not die immediately. He was rushed to the hospital, where police questioned him. He refused to say much, except that the police were responsible for the shooting, which is consistent with the fact that 2 of the assailants wore police uniforms. Gusenberg died 3 hours after the shooting, taking anything else he knew to his grave. The garage itself became a tourist attraction almost immediately after the shootings. In 1949, the front portion of the SMC garage was turned into an antique furniture storage business by a couple who had no idea of the building's bloody past. They soon found that the place was visited much more by tourists and curiosity seekers than by customers. Soon after they closed the business, curiosity and morbid seekers made the building unusable for any business. So the owners had it demolished in 1967. A Canadian businessman, George Patey, bought the bullet-ridden walls the mobsters were shot in front of. He never disclosed exactly how much he paid, other than saying a few $1,000s. He had the 414 bricks from the wall shipped to Vancouver, Canada. For a while they were displayed in a Canadian nightclub. Patey then sold some of the bricks as souvenirs. Eventually the Mob Museum in Las Vegas acquired many of the bricks, and now displays the wall there. Today, the site is just a small parking lot and a lawn. They are part of the Margaret Day Blake Apartments, built by the Chicago Housing Authority, a few years after the demolition. The now empty site of where the massacre took place, has been the site of many strange occurrences. It's said that there was left a sort of psychic imprint on the grounds, and that after the garage was torn down in the 1960s, that dogs who walked past the fence would go wild, barking and jumping, trying to get into the area, as if they wanted to chase something. Many reports say the sound of machine gun fire, and a phantom dog's bark can be heard, and dark, gangster-like figures in fedoras have all been reported here. Residents of the buildings next to the site say that after a fresh snow, you can sometimes see the outline of 7 bodies in the snow, where the bodies fell after the shooting. Other inexplicable noises, and a feeling of dread, have also been reported. When Al Capone was in prison in Philadelphia, he claims he started being haunted by one of the massacre victims, James Clark. Capone would start screaming in his cell, begging Jimmy to go away and leave him alone. After his stint in prison, he claimed the ghost followed him back to Chicago. Capone's bodyguards frequently would hear him screaming, and when they rushed to him, he would tell them it was Clark's ghost. According to guards and former inmates, it continued while he was in Alcatraz, and then after his release. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were 2 of America's most notorious gangsters during the Great Depression of the 1930s. Their reign of terror started in February 1932. The couple spent the next 21 months on the road, with other gang members, and became known as the Barrow Gang. They quickly moved from petty thievery into bank robberies, kidnapping, and murder. Their crime spree covered the rural parts of Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. The press at the time often romanticized the pair's exploits. But the truth was, Bonnie and Clyde carried out ruthless bank and store robberies, which resulted in the murder, kidnapping, or wounding of some of their victims. Clyde and his gang members murdered a total of 13 people, 9 of whom were police officers. In the end, they were betrayed by one of their own gang members, Henry Methvin. In May of 1934, the couple were driving a backwooded road near their hideout, at Bienville Parish, Louisiana, when police officers from Texas and Louisiana set up a roadblock, near Gibbsland, Louisiana. These 5 officers ambushed the stolen car Bonnie and Clyde were in, and within minutes the car was riddled with over 100 bullets. Bonnie's body was found, dead and slumped over Clyde's. The 2 bodies were towed from the site still in the car. After arriving in town, onlookers managed to cut hair and other souvenirs from the bodies. One man even tried to cut off Clyde's ear, and his trigger finger also, but the officers managed to stop him. Since their deaths, many people claim their ghosts still remain. The most active of these hauntings is at the site, in the wooded area near where they were shot and killed. A marker is placed at the spot where Bonnie and Clyde's car rolled off the road. Many visitors to this spot have reported strange anomalies, lights and ghostly mists showing up in their photographs. Several people have reported seeing shadowy figures in the area, usually at night, as well as an unsettling feeling while in the area. The car is considered by many to be haunted by their ghosts. For 30 years the blood-splattered, bullet-ridden death car was a popular attraction at carnivals, amusement parks, and state fairs. Today the car is displayed in a room, along with Clyde Barrow's blood-stained bullet-holed shirt, at Whiskey Pete's Casino in Primm, Nevada, just across the border from California. Numerous people over the years who have seen the car have stated they got a creepy feeling as they stood near it. Also, just like at the shooting site, many people who have taken photographs of this car have had strange anomalies in their pictures. One hotel that Bonnie and Clyde stayed at for several nights during their crime spree was the Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, Texas. It is said they haunt two areas of the hotel, the Brazos Room and the Ballroom. Some have stated they can feel their ghosts are still there. Others say that it is several items the hotel owns that keep their ghost spirits there. The hotel once had Bonnie's .38 revolver on display, as well as photographs of her and Clyde. The hotel also once displayed a poem that Bonnie wrote for Clyde. Some also reported a ghostly woman wearing a long old-fashioned gown, walking in the hotel lobby, and have stated that the figure resembles Bonnie. In 1854, Balthasar Kreischer, a Bavarian immigrant who became wealthy from a brick-making empire. His fortune was made fabricating and selling fireproof bricks, began building 2 houses on a 5-acre plot of land on Staten Island. Construction was complete in 1885, and Balthasar's 2 sons, Charles and Edward, moved into the palatial estates, 1 house for each son. Balthasar died just a year later. Not long after his death, Balthasar's brick business fell on hard times. There were rumors that a chef had been murdered in the kitchen, and that the Kreischers had often locked their children in closets as punishment, with at least one said to have died in that state. In 1894, after an apparent argument with his brother at the factory, Balthasar's son Edward committed suicide. Edward's suicide was the beginning of what would be the end for the Kreischers and their business. Then in 1899, they declared bankruptcy and the factory was sold at auction. Edward's mansion was torn down in the 1940s, only leaving Charles' home sitting atop Kreischer Hill. Then in April 2005, Joseph Young, also known as Joe Black, who was the caretaker of the estate, was hired by the Bonanno crime family to take out a man named Robert McKelvey, who owed money to Bonanno patriarch Gino Galestro. Joe Black, accompanied by 3 other men, managed to get McKelvey into the mansion, where he stabbed the unsuspecting man with a knife. But McKelvey didn't die. Instead, the bleeding man ran for the door. The other men grabbed him and attempted to strangle him. This also proved unsuccessful. It took all 4 of the men to eventually drown McKelvey in a shallow pool in the front yard. The killers then took the body to the basement, cut it into small pieces, and disposed of each piece in the coal-burning furnace. It took an entire year before the FBI was able to fully investigate the murder. By that time, the furnace in the basement had been removed from the building. However, enough evidence was recovered to sentence Joe Black to life in prison in 2008. In 2009, Galestro was given 20 years for ordering the hit. Among the ghosts said to haunt the mansion are that of Edward Kreischer and his wife Frieda, the German chef who is rumored to have died there, and that of a young boy whose identity is unknown, but who is thought to have been one of the Kreischer children. Also, many shadow figures have been reported. Other paranormal activity include apparitions, rooms locked from the inside, only to be unlocked later, slamming doors, flickering lights, noises such as footsteps, whispers, and screaming. Videotapes made by paranormal investigators have been mysteriously erased. The house has become the site of an annual Halloween haunted house, and has appeared on TV programs, such as Boardwalk Empire and Gotham. The crews and actors reporting many strange occurrences, such as objects moving, unexplained equipment malfunctions, and the apparition of a little girl.